welcome back to Bob's Little Sports Shop. I'm Jeremiah. Today we're going to be talking about different styles of hunting recurves. What I have here is, this is going to be the OMP Carbon Z riser, right-handed, and these are the Reaper limbs. They're wooden fiberglass, precision crafted. This one's going to be made of carbon, zebra wood, and phenolic. This one here is the Bear Super Kodiak. They use a maple and they back it with white and black fiberglass on the limb tips, and then I believe it's just black fiberglass that they back it with on the actual limbs. This is a one-piece recurve, and then this one here is a ILF style recurve. And then this one here, this is from Fleetwood. It's called the Monarch. This bow is a non-ILF, and so we'll get into what exactly that means. So starting here with the ILF style, this is going to be the same kind of style that Target recurves are made from. What that essentially means, ILF is an acronym for International Limb Fit. You can see the limb connection style here. You can see that limb pocket in there, and you can see that the limb just slides into place, clicks in like that. It's a real secure connection, and it's a very tunable design. So some of the areas we see that we can mess with the tuning, we have right here on the limb bolts. What you can do is you can crank those in, and there's bolts back here. You can crank those out, and you can adjust those individually, so that way you can adjust what's called your tiller, and that's essentially the distance between your limb and the string when it's strung. Depending on how you shoot, whether it's split finger or 3-under, you'll adjust your tiller accordingly, whether you have more space at the top or more space at the bottom. You generally don't want to have it even, you want to go more space on the top or bottom, which is referred to as a negative or a positive tiller. Positive tiller being the top limb having more space between itself and the string than the bottom, and negative tiller would be more distance between the limb pocket and the string on the bottom end. The other thing we get to adjust here, we have these screws. These are limb alignment screws, and so if I pull this limb out here, there's that little bracket right there, and that bracket actually can shift right and left, and you can use these set screws here and here. And it's the same deal as with the limb bolts. If you want to screw it in, you got to unscrew the back end, then screw in the front. Same thing over here, 2 set screws that meet. So you'll unscrew one and screw in the other. You can adjust how your limbs are aligned. You can adjust your tiller. And those are pretty much the main things that you really worry about with an ILF recurve style setup. And this one in particular it's not compatible with sights or stabilizers, anything like that, although most ILF designs would be. Not necessarily for sights and stabilizers, but you could also use it for things like certain attachments for different styles or different uses for the bow, whether it's fishing or hunting or whatever. But this one in particular does not come with those tapped places on the bow. Moving on, next one, the Bear Super Kodiak. This is a very nice bow. It's handcrafted from Bear Archery. As is implied in the name, it's a one-piece recurve, so it's all one piece. There's no taking it down. There's no disconnections that we can disassemble this and put it away like that. You store this as is, and you string it up and use it like that. So it's a very simplistic design. It's a very traditional design, and they make some very smooth shooting bow. But basically, it is what it is, and you either love it or hate it. And if you don't like it, there's because they're handmade, there's a lot of variation in the different designs that they offer. So whether it's a different design or even if it's the same exact bow, if it's another Super Kodiak, they all feel different because they're all crafted different, because they're all handmade. So none of them are the same. So if you want to try Super Kodiak or any of the Bear recurves, try a couple, because they don't all feel the same, and they don't all shoot the same either. Going to the last one, this is a non-ILF recurve. So this tends to be on the price point end. When I say non-ILF, basically it's any kind of takedown style where it's not an ILF connection. Like here we see how it slides in and out of the limb pocket and connects like that. Whereas this one, you see it's a bolt right there, and we have to unscrew it all the way out to pull out the limb. And it doesn't slide in, it just bolts right through the limb. This is also a really secure connection. It's a very simplistic design. Probably in simplicity, this would be the most, and then this would be next, and this would be the most complex of the 3 designs. But it's easy to take apart, put back together. You just really have to just put it in the limb pocket and put the bolt through it. These recurves, they tend to be wood with a black fiberglass backing. It's a really great option price point wise, or for somebody who's just starting out. This one right here is a great bow for beginners because it's with these 9 ILF limb attachments here, you can actually change out the limbs from a lower poundage up to a higher poundage. If you wanted to get a recurve like this, you could buy it, say 16 pounds, something like that, 12 pounds, whatever you're comfortable with. You could get limbs at that poundage, and then if you wanted to get up to a weight that you want to hunt with, then eventually, as you feel comfortable, you jump in increments in weight for the draw weight in increments that you're comfortable with, and you'll be able to swap out the limbs and keep using the same riser all the way through until you get to whatever your goal is. And then once you get there, then you'll just be able to switch the limbs and keep the riser. That's one of the pros of this style, and they do offer it in really low poundages, and they offer all the way up into really high poundages. I believe it's going to be anywhere from 12 pounds all the way up to 60 pounds, if I remember correctly. And that's one of the great things about these recurves. The one thing that I guess if you were saying that you were sacrificing something, it's just you can see that the higher end recurves, they have a lot more detail in the craftsmanship. So that's one thing that comes with a higher end recurve, is that craftsmanship and materials. Those are going to be some of the big things that matter when it comes to a higher end recurves. So very simple craftsmanship, doesn't have a fancy finish or anything like that. You just have these metal limb pockets and the bolts. Very simplistic design, and it's a good price point for that reason. These ones are made overseas, and these two, I believe this one is made in the US, handmade in the US right now. It's Gainesville is where they're producing their recurves. This is the only one in the lineup that's made in the US. I don't have one here, but we also sell the Hoyt Satori, which is another one that's made in the US. The two brands of recurves that we're selling made in the US are going to be Bear and Hoyt, if that matters to you. This is another one. It's produced overseas, and one of the things I wanted to mention too about the ILF design is one of the big advantages that people like about it, besides the tunability, is going to be limb compatibility, because as the name implies, an international limb fit, you can actually take limbs from just about any brand that has ILF limbs, and you can put them on here. So I can take Target limbs, I can take any kind of Hoyt recurve limbs, I can take WNS recurve limbs, any recurve limb from any company that I like, and I can put them onto this riser, so that I can use this riser with any set of limbs from any company that makes an ILF limb. There's even TradTech actually makes a longbow limb that's ILF that you can even use. You can turn this into a longbow. So that's one of the great advantages to this. These two recurves here come with a Flemish twist string. It's a very old style of making strings, and it's very reliable, and it's very quiet, tends to be very quiet. Both of them use a Flemish twist string. This one here is going to use a endless loop background string. One of the big differences there is with this style of string, it tends to put less tension on the limb tips because it stretches as well as when you pull it. So it's going to stretch a little bit more than Flemish twist style. It puts a little bit less tension on the limbs, so you lose a little bit of performance. And it's a little bit less consistent, but it's just less tension on the limbs, a little bit less wear and tear on the limbs there. But as far as the utility of it, the Flemish twist is very great for hunting in that regard. One last thing you'll notice between these bows is one is going to be the size difference. You can see they're all different lengths here, and that's going to be something that's going to be specific to the shooter that they're going to want to decide for themselves. So length is not something that's really set in stone for each person. It's not a science, so you really have to just kind of find out what's comfortable for you, and the best way to do it is try some different sizes out. The other thing you may notice is that the curve on some of them is going to be more aggressive than others. So you can see that the curves are a little bit different, and one thing that's going to do is whenever you have a recurve limb that's has a more aggressive curve on it, it's going to be a faster shooting bow, generally speaking, because the more the curve that's in the limb, the more energy it'll store when you draw it back. If the curve is a really tight curve, you get more energy. If it's not as tight of a curve, then what ends up happening is you just get a little bit of a smoother draw. So it'll feel more comfortable to shoot. So it's kind of a balance that you have to decide between performance and comfort. One other thing that you'll want to look for, depending on your purpose for the recurve, is going to be whether or not it's tapped and has inserts for certain equipment. So this one here is the only one that's going to be tapped and has the inserts for certain things. Like these two here, you can either use a sight if you wanted to, if you're just shooting for fun, or if you like using a sight. This also will, you can use it as a quiver bracket. You can mount a quiver bracket there and put a quiver on there, or if you wanted to use it for bow fishing, you can actually mount a reel there. Another place you can also mount a reel right here. You could also use a stabilizer, like a bare bow stabilizer. And then here, if you wanted to, there's a couple things you could put in there, whether it's a plunger because you wanted to mount a rest as opposed to shooting off the shelf. That's something you could mount there. You'll notice all these bows actually are set up to shoot off the shelf. A lot of bows can take a stick-on rest as well. You don't have to shoot off the shelf. You can shoot off of a stick-on rest, whether it's a shoot-around rest that's rubber and wears out, or you can use a flipper rest, which is going to basically be a metal pin that moves out of the way as soon as it makes contact with the feathers of the vanes. That's the basics of picking out a hunting recurve. You'll want to look for those things and make sure that it has the inserts that you're looking for, the attachments, the adjustability, whatever you're looking to get out of it. Just make sure that whatever recurve you're picking is going to be suited for whatever you're trying to use it for. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have anything you'd like to say or you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Also, give us a share, a like, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you.